Now I know what you may be thinking. That's impossible. All people die in the void after about 10 seconds. Then they just move on to better things. But I am not part of all people. Because I have an insane strategy to survive long-term in the most inhospitable place in all of Minecraft for no particular reason. The void. This is the ultimate Minecraft survival challenge. So, how exactly do you survive for 30 days in the void? There are 4 options. Enchanted golden apples, beacons with the regeneration effect, potions of healing, or totems of undying. There are approximately 3 problems however. Totems of undying do not work in the void, and potions are unstackable so you can only fit 36 of them in your inventory. The range of even the highest tier beacon cannot reach below y equals -64. Leaving enchanted golden apples. The most overpowered method of healing, not to mention that you can fit 2,304 enchanted golden apples in your inventory. But even with 2,304 enchanted golden apples, you will not survive more than 3 hours in the void. So is it possible to store even more golden apples in your inventory? The answer is yes. Using shulker boxes, which can each hold 1728 enchanted golden apples, and putting 36 shulker boxes in your inventory, this amounts to 62,000 golden apples. There is a problem with this however. The only way to access shulker boxes is to place them down on solid ground and right-click them. When you are falling in the void there is no way to place shulker boxes so you cannot access all your golden apples. So that is a dead end. The next solution for getting more than 2,304 golden apples is to store tens of thousands of golden apples in storages on the end island and use a dispenser to throw new golden apples down to you as you consume the ones in your inventory. The problem with this is that you will soon be hundreds of thousands of blocks in the void and dropped items cannot reach you fast enough to heal you. However, there is a solution to this problem. There is a method shown by Razeworks and Wifeys, to ensure that you will not drop below y equals -64. Using some alt accounts, some lead, and some pigs with saddles, you can create a chain of players down to y equals -64, which is the requirement for this challenge. But there is one issue that brings this entire plan down. All entities you ride below y equals -64 will die. Not to mention that the structure is very unstable. So you can't necessarily ride in the void. Not to mention that basically everything dies below y equals -64. This includes golden apples, which die in the void. So you can't really do much. So it was time for a different idea. There is a method of creating an easily accessible stockpile of resources at y equals -62, a method discovered by Edsample. Link in the description. Here's how it works. You put a shulker and a minecart next to a dispenser holding TNT, both on top of an iron trapdoor at y equals 1. Then you push this button. The trapdoor opens and the minecart shulker drops, the dispenser ignites some TNT, and they both fall at the same speed until the TNT explodes at y equals -62, destroying the minecart and leaving the shulker, which floats in the air as a solid block. You can then drop as many minecarts with chests on top of this structure with all the resources you need. This will store golden apples and other items to last the full challenge. Then you can use an elytra and fireworks to fly around y equals -64 for the entire challenge so that you can reach the stockpile when you need more stuff. The issue is that elytras don't last forever. And when they decide they've had enough, you basically die. Usually you should be able to fix elytras using mending, or by combining them with phantom membranes. But none of these methods work in the void. Mending requires XP to fix items, but even XP stuff dies in the void. Combining elytras with stuff requires an anvil, but you can't place anvils because they also die in the void. The best option was to get Unbreaking 3, which quadruples the lifespan of an elytra to about 28 minutes, meaning you would need approximately 22 spare elytras with this enchant to survive a month of flying around in the void. Preferably more just in case. Finally, you would need some fireworks to launch yourself close to the void base and not fall too far. and due to having to stay in survival mode throughout the entire challenge, including preparation, all materials including the thousands of enchanted gold apples, fireworks, and elytras will have to be obtained legitimately. Not to mention that Mojang decided that enchanted golden apples should no longer be craftable since the 1.9 update. So you would have to switch versions to 1.8 to craft them, which has a high chance of corrupting the world and ruining everything. But I was not going to turn down a challenge. First it was time to do math. 2 stacks of enchanted golden apples will last you about 7 minutes 50 seconds. 2 things to keep in mind are that normal golden apples are too weak to survive the void, and you only have to eat golden apples when you drop to 8 hearts. Conserving enchanted golden apples will save a lot of them, which is the definition of conserve. So with this, it will require about 150 stacks of enchanted golden apples to survive 30 Minecraft days. This can be obtainable with trading with many inbred villagers for a huge amount of apples, and by using overpowered nether gold farms. Now it was time to pick a gold farm design to get all of the gold. I decided on this intimidating stack of mathematical calculation magma layers as it made about 600 gold blocks per hour, far better than any other farm in existence. As for the elytras, there is a method to locate all end cities easily to loot them. As for the fireworks, sugarcane and gunpowder farms will be used. And when all the things have been acquired, I will go to an end city, escort some shulkers to the drop area, use the TNT strat to drop them further down to y=-62, and put all the resources I need onto minecarts and load them on top of the shulkers. Then I will put the elytra on, drop into the void, chug some golden apples, and begin the challenge of surviving 1 month in the void, longer than anyone else has done before. Now that the plan was done, it was time to get right into the action. But while I get right into action, you, the viewer who is viewing this, should get right into the action of smashing the subscribe button. Anyways, back to the original topic. So I decided that the first thing to do was to rush for the first elytra and get mending on it, which I would use to make the rest of the preparation easier. The seed I got was quite decent, with some nearby trees, a cave with iron in it, and even a lava lake. So I started off with some basic stone tools, which I used to get iron gear. After this I built the nether portal. You can probably tell what happens next. Now that I had an elytra, there were several things I was looking to do. On the way to the stronghold I stumbled upon 2 desert villages, and I decided to go for the one that was closest to the end portal. But first, I knew I was going to make multiple trips to the end, so I made a tunnel for the purpose of dropping right into the portal, and I marked this with a gigantic plus sign made out of wood. Then I made my way to the village. Along the way I accidentally found a 3rd village. So I put this to use. After chopping down some trees, I sold about 500 sticks for over a stack of emeralds. With this, I went to the village I was originally planning to go to, and I put everyone into a basement. In this aforementioned basement, I got 2 lecterns and repeatedly spammed them on villagers to get new random trades every time, until I got unbreaking or mending. both of which I got within 200 attempts. I locked both of these trades by buying one of each book with the emeralds from the previous village. This makes sure that the villagers can't change trades anymore. However, these were way too expensive for now, and I was going to need to mass buy Unbreaking, about 46 to be exact. So it was time to convince the villager to lower his prices. After going on a hunt for several items, including a spider eye, another blaze rod, gunpowder, 1 apple, and a mushroom, I made an 1 golden apple and brewed some splash potions of weakness. Then I trapped the Unbreaking seller in a corner, and dug a hole above him to the surface. Next I lured a zombie to the hole, and he dropped inside and killed the villager. I did this on hard mode for a 100% chance of the villager resurrecting as a zombie villager. After getting rid of the normal zombie, I used the weakness and golden apple on the zombie villager, causing him to heal and turn back into a normal guy, with the same trades as before. Except he was now selling Unbreaking for basically free because I technically saved him from the zombies. The next step was to gather some gunpowder and paper so I could get a decent amount of fireworks, for the elytra. For the paper I made a small sugarcane farm, and for the gunpowder I decided to go with a small and simple farm design as I don't need a lot of fireworks anyways. This farm requires 2 cats, so I decided to go to another village where there were some naturally spawning stray cats. After slaying some fish in a nearby river, I tamed 2 of these cats, allowing me to lure them towards Higblon town to be trapped for eternity. Then I built an hourglass out of trapdoors and slabs. In this hourglass there are 2 cats and 14 carpets, and a hole leading to 2 blue campfires feeding into a chest. Exactly 120 blocks above is a tiny capsule where I AFK. The reason why this somehow works is a bit too long to explain, but all I know is that we have gunpowder now. Combine this with the bountiful sugarcane harvest, and I have enough fireworks to last for a while. After enchanting the elytra with the mending and unbreaking books purchased from villagers who have been to the afterlife and back, I decided to do a test flight. Now that I had a lot of fireworks, it was time to begin the construction of the gold farm, which would be made much easier now that I could fly around. But of course, you can't build the gold farm without gathering the materials to build the aforementioned gold farm. So how many materials exactly do we need? It was time for a change of plan. It was time to loot more end cities first. To be exact, we will need to loot 22 of them to get enough elytras to survive a month in the void. As a byproduct of burglarizing these towns made out of dandruff and discolored popcorn, we will find overpowered enchanted diamond gear and shulker boxes, which will be very useful tools for making the gold farm later on. So it was time to begin the grind. After about 3 hours of gaming, I obtained 24 pieces of enchanted diamond armor, 7 diamond swords including one with looting, 14 enchanted tools including one with silk touch, which would be useful, several stacks of diamonds, gold and iron, and most importantly, 22 elytras. More than enough to last the entire preparation. So it was time to return to base and work on the overpowered gold farm. After converting all my shulker shells into shulker boxes, it was time to get 4,000 magma blocks and 1,300 glass. But first, I would need 94 hoppers, which is around 500 iron. I wasn't in the mood to strip mine or raid more end cities for iron, so I decided to make an iron farm so I could build the gold farm. To do this, I got some building materials and went back to one of the desert villages I found, which still had most of their population left. Then I built an X-shaped platform with 2 capsules on the side. In the middle of the platform are 4 extra-large nether portals to fit the obese iron golems, which lead into a pool of lava. Underneath this lava are some hoppers feeding into some redstone mechanism which spits all the drops back into the overworld and into some other redstone mechanism and a storage system. The next part was luring 12 villagers and 2 zombies into the structure and getting 2 name tags. When you have 12 villagers in a small area, the game will think it's a village and will spawn iron golems in the middle of the village so that it can defend the villagers from the zombies with name tags. But nobody tell them. After luring 12 sleepy villagers into my X-shaped chamber with the promise of beds, and then finding 4 name tags and 4 zombies because the first 2 died due to unfortunate circumstances, and after about 3 near-death incidents, I successfully lured all the entities into their new seating arrangement. Then I cleared out all the extra blocks and flattened out the area below for more efficiency. Unfortunately, one of the villagers escaped and was sucked into the inescapable death trap, so I replaced him with another guy who was up for the job. And after a few hours of standing here, I came down to find 11 stacks of iron. With that out of the way, it was time to get the other materials. The next step was obtaining 4,000 magma blocks, which was made easier with the Frostwalker boots I found in the End City, so that you don't take damage from magma blocks. Now that was done, I mined over 1,000 sand and went to the Nether with 22 furnaces to smelt them. The lava oceans are simply free fuel for furnaces. As for the about 50 other ingredients, I spent hours going on witch hunts for weird ingredients such as 16 pad thais, 33 melons, 10 turtle eggs, and 11 honey blocks, which for some reason were required. But I was not going to question it. With all the materials stashed into shulker boxes, it was time to locate an area to build the farm. The ideal location is above a giant lava lake in the nether waste biome. Once I reached a giant lava lake in the nether waste biome, I went to the ceiling and teleported above the bedrock, where I made a new nether portal for easy access between the ceiling and the overworld. Now it was time to finally begin the build. And now, the farm was finally done. But wait a minute. Building this is not enough. The farm will not work as efficiently if there are mobs spawning below the bedrock, because Minecraft has a maximum on how many mobs can exist. So after spending about 2 hours to cut down trees, I placed slabs on all solid blocks in an area of about 256 blocks around the farm, since mobs can spawn on them. And to reach max efficiency, you have to farm manually with a looting 3 sword. So I placed mending on a looting 3 sword I found in the End City, so that the experience from the mob farm will instantly repair the sword, and I could farm infinitely. Finally, I opened an auto clicker and set it to click every second. Now it was time to do some calculation. With the farm's max efficiency of 600 gold blocks per hour, it would take about 130 hours of farming to get enough golden apples to survive in the void. Or about 5 full days of farming. Not to mention that from time to time you have to combine all the gold nuggets and ingots into gold blocks so they don't clog up the storage. So it was time to do this for about 130 hours. So as you may have noticed, the storage system is much larger than before to store the gargantuan amount of gold produced by this, and crafting tables are everywhere so I can craft gold wherever I want. There's also yet another storage area for all the gold blocks I crafted from the farm. I now have 24 dubs of golden blocks, which should be enough enchanted golden apples. I also had over 1,842 levels from killing hundreds of thousands of pigmen, so this was an opportune time to enchant all my 22 elytras with unbreaking. After running the farm for a bit more and saving all the rotten flesh, I returned to Igblon town and sold all of them for emeralds, and used them at the unbreaking book villager. However, it appears that over a long period of time, the villagers slowly raise their book prices back to normal. So it looks like they need a little reminding of who saved them in the first place. After waiting a while for villager trades to replenish, I now had 22 unbreaking 3 elytras. Now that was done, it was time to begin the second step of getting 10,000 enchanted golden apples. An equally tricky part of making them was getting the apples themselves. The most reliable way of mass-producing apples is by trading with apprentice-level farmers. The problem is, the average farmer can only do 32 apple trades every Minecraft day, averaging to 1.6 trades per real-life minute, averaging to 0.026 trades per second, which is way too slow. Luckily there is apparently a method to constantly reset the trade limit for infinite apples. But before we get to that, we would need a nearly infinite supply of emeralds. Luckily, there is apparently a method to get unlimited emeralds. Basically you get an apprentice librarian who sells bookshelves and buys books, and then save him from zombies so that prices are at minimum. By buying the bookshelf for 1 emerald, breaking it to get 3 books, and reselling it for 1 emerald each, you can triple your emeralds. Problem is, the librarian can only do 24 trades every day. So it was time to use an equally tedious but way cooler method to get emeralds. A pillager raid farm. Thankfully this was a lot less expensive to build than the gold farm, but it requires you to find a pillager outpost and to move a villager out there. Luckily, I already found an outpost when I was searching for turtle eggs. Unluckily it was next to a frozen ocean, which wouldn't work since it will break the farm. In fact, any sort of land next to the outpost would be inconvenient, so I searched for a while for an outpost next to an ocean. I found one several thousand blocks away. Next, I located the closest village to the outpost and proceeded to travel to that village to kidnap approximately 1 villager, which I rode to the farm area by boat. The farm itself is basically a giant funnel around 100 blocks away from the shore, with a villager on a bed floating above the ocean. The ocean is so that the raid has no other choice but to spawn on top of the funnel, and the villager is the thing that causes raids to happen in the first place. So I built a 2x1 platform with a bed for the villager. And he accepted his new job without any resistance. Then I simply followed the rest of the tutorial. Finally, the pillager funnel was completed. But before starting the farm, I had to first get the bad omen effect. To do this, I went to the pillager outpost and killed the raid leader. And he cursed me with the bad omen. After returning to the farm and starting the redstone, the raid began. The game thinks that the one villager floating on a bed is a village, so the bad omen effect spawns in a group of pillagers to raid that one villager. However, instead of finding a village, the pillagers spawn on top of an inescapable death trap leading to certain death at the hands of AutoClicker 3.0, causing them to die. In this raid is another raid leader, and killing it gives you bad omen again, allowing you to spawn another raid. And the cycle repeats. The final step was changing to hard difficulty since the difficulty determines the amount of pillagers in the raid. More pillagers is more loot. With all of that, it was time to farm. And after testing it, this somehow miraculously worked. I ran it for about 2 hours, and midway through I expanded the storage system because of all the random stuff clogging up the chests. But besides all that stuff, I now had some emeralds. Enough to buy about 10,000 apples. To do this I would need a method to replenish villager trades constantly. I attempted a trade resetter that sends the villager back and forth between the nether, combined with a nether chunk loader, but I couldn't get it to work. So instead of constantly trading with one villager, I was going to not as constantly trade with about 20 villagers. To get 20 villagers I was going to make a villager breeding farm. After luring 2 villagers into a box with all the necessities of life, and a trap to trap all baby villagers, and a containment zone for all the kids, and going AFK overnight, I came back to see tens of grown brothers and sisters glitching in and out of the containment zone. I then led this family of about 50 people into a zone where I spammed composters everywhere so they would all become farmers. As it turns out, the game doesn't really like it when you place down too many job sites, so I was stuck at around 30 composters. Also, to unlock the apple trade you must do a few beginning trades first, for a 66% chance for the villager to start selling apples. For the other 33%, they were exiled from the community. I brought around 3,500 emeralds from the raid farm, so I just began going crazy on the villager trades. However, villagers eventually raised their prices if you buy too much from them, and I ran out of emeralds midway. So I returned to the raid farm to do a little bit more trolling. And after returning to the trading room and buying overpriced apples for about an hour, I had 3 dubs of apples, which should be enough. Now that I had all the gold blocks and apples, it was time to combine them into enchanted golden apples. As a reward for their service, I did a free bread giveaway, and I stuffed all my apples into shulker boxes before returning to the nether portal leading to my gold farm. I put all the apples in some chests next to it, and then I transferred all the gold back to the overworld. Changing versions to an older one is an especially bad idea in the nether or the end dimension, and it can cause lots of damage to the overworld, so after a bit of experimentation, I came up with this. First you begin in 1.16 in the overworld with the golden apple stash. Set your render distance to 2. You take 4 stacks of apples and 32 stacks of gold and then go 200 blocks away in any direction. Then you change to 1.15, load the world, and then change to 1.8. The 1.15 step is required for the world to even show up in 1.8. Also, changing versions resets world generation, but if you go far away enough then your stash of items should be okay. Then you make a crafting table, craft all your golden apples. Return to 1.16, return to the stash by traversing all the corrupted stuff, and put all of the golden apples in the stash. Then rinse and repeat, about 54 times. Since changing versions corrupts your inventory, I put all my equipment in a chest while doing this. But anyways, I now had 3 dubs of enchanted golden apples, which I stashed into shulker boxes. After AFKing a bit more on the gunpowder farm for even more rockets, it was finally time to begin the challenge. I had all the elytras, rockets, and golden apples needed to survive in the void long term. I also brought along some TNT for the final part of the preparation. It was time to set up the void base. To do this, I went into peaceful mode to make trapping shulkers easier. Then I went to an end city that was close to the edge of the void, built my way down to y=0 and made this platform with several redstone timers. Then I crafted a whole lot of rails, and built lots of railways leading from the end city to the platform. After doing 2 rounds of carting 4 shulkers from the end city to this trapdoor area and flipping this important lever to release all the shulkers and TNT into the void, I ended up with 7 because one of them died from the TNT. But that's still enough. Then I begin loading 7 mine carts with chests to drop on top of the shulkers. 5 for golden apples, 1 for elytras, and 1 for fireworks. My inventory was filled with the rest of the apples and some spare items. Now that was done, the final step was to jump.